Hello, everybody.
Hello, folks.
It's us again.
I felt a bit like Peter Kay there, when he was trying to hold that pose. Remember?
Oh dear. Technology still being a little bit of a learning curve, but there you go. First of all, we wanted to say thank you to you all for even watching these videos and listening to them. So many of you, we are so grateful.
You're all stars.
Yeah, it's great. We're getting feedback from lots of different people about it. People we meet out dog walking, neighbours, friends, family. And who would have thought? These stories of ours, Arnold, that we've lived through. Everybody loves a story.
Well, we know them all, but hey.
It's good to be reminded sometimes. Yeah, so thanks very much, folks.
Yes, thank you.
For watching these. Now, to catch up on the last one, we finished, didn't we, on the last bit of our first date together. So that was a Saturday night. On the Thursday, just after that, I got a phone call from the hospital. If you remember, I was told I'd have to wait months for this, saying I could start nursing on the Monday.
Oh.
Great. That is so good. I've done my business now. I've gone into the job centre, met my man.
We'd had our first kiss.
Oh, you seem to remember that, Arnold. First of many. No, don't go there. Okay. So, if go on Mondays, that was great. But then they told, so you would move in on the Sunday night, and I'm going, move in? I didn't realise we had to go to, I had to go move into the nurse's home, and that would have been my first time living away from home at 18 years old. So that was a wee bit of a change, but I was going for it. Now we're going to pick up our story from there, but first of all, I want to say about these. There we go. Now, I have this gorgeous, great niece in Northern Ireland. Her name is Zoe. She's 5 years old. And let's all say, hello, Zoe. Are you watching tonight? Well, Zoe had lots of lovely things to say about us and about our stories, but then she had an important question to ask her mummy. Why do they keep taking their glasses on and off?
Just like that.
Well, Zoe, the thing is, we're getting so old now that we need some help with our eyesight when we're reading things. And we have to make notes for these stories, because if I don't have notes, I could be all around the world and it could be questionable whether I'd get back onto the main train of thought this week. Arnold, you're nodding as if you've experienced that kind of thing.
Just a little bit.
Just a few times. Anyway, shall we move on now with the story? Right. Okay, Arnold, I think it's over to you.
Okay.
Glasses on. Zoe, I'm going to try not to use my glasses tonight, okay?
Sorry, Zoe, I'm not. So we're trying to write a little poem for each story, and this one is entitled A Bridge Over Troubled Waters. Our courting began as the troubles grew worse, when crossing Belfast at night wasn't wise. But true love will always find a way through. The risk was worth it just to look in her eyes. Those troubled days in Belfast were tough. One Friday afternoon in July 72, 22 IRA bombs exploded, causing deaths and many injuries too. Bloody Friday is still a memory with me, as I worked very close to one blast, and I realized then how fragile life was. I'd be gone if I'd been walking past.
Oh, such an awful day in Belfast, wasn't it?
Terrible.
And the thing, I was up the north coast for a weekend, and then I heard about all these bombs exploding in Belfast city centre, and that's where Arnold works, in the city centre. I've got a phone. I'll find a phone somewhere and see if I can phone. Mobile phones in those days were ancient, So I found a phone and I phoned his office, and there was no answer. And I let it ring and ring and ring, and no answer. I thought that did not help the anxiety levels.
That was because we had to be evacuated. The bomb was horrible. There were lots of bombs, but there was one about 200 yards from where I worked, and the sound of it was just horrible. So
Oxford
we were
Street.
all out in the street.
Sorry, Arn. Oxford
Yeah.
Street bus station, for those
Yeah.
who may know Belfast.
Remember it. And there were people sadly killed.
Mhm.
So it was a very difficult time, especially for people like Pamela who didn't know what had happened and who had been injured.
Over to you again, Arnold.
Pamela's training meant living in hospital rooms, Mussen House in RVH grounds, that's the Royal Victoria Hospital for those who don't know, Belfast, and leaving her there at the end of the day meant a quick drop off before getting home fast.
Not so quick, always, Arnold.
Well,
Don't go there at the minute.
that's probably true. An army post near those residence halls drew fire from IRA guns on many nights. So for safety, Pamela had to sleep on the floor as tracer bullets whizzed by. What a fright. During a workers' strike, when the roads were blocked, Pamela went to the headquarters of the UDA, that's the Ulster Defence Association, and boldly requested a lift to her work, which was granted with little delay.
Yes, of course it was. So I walked 1.5 miles from where I lived with Mum, and Dad was working in England at the time. A little detail. You see, Zoe, what happens when I don't have my glasses on? It's just a little detail. 1.5 miles down to the Newton Arts Road where the UDA headquarters were. And I went in and said, I need to speak to your boss, please.
Big boss. Wow. Very brave.
In hindsight, you realise, well, that was a wee bit scary, but I just knew I had to do it. So I went in, was shown into his office. It's quite a spooky experience, actually, but anyway. And I said, I'm a nurse. I can't get through in my car. I've walked already this far down to you, but I need to get a lift, please, to the Royal Victoria. The Royal Victoria! We're not going anywhere near there. And I said, excuse me, I'm part of the emergency services. You have blocked all the roads. Nobody else can get through, but guys like you.
The Royal Victoria Hospital was on the peace line, for those who don't know. Mm-hmm. And that was a dodgy place to be.
Yeah, so it was just between the Protestant, what was known as the Protestant area, and the Roman Catholic area. So, which hence the fighting in the grounds, etc. Just in a bad position, really, for that. So my little tussle with this boss in his office continued, which he said, there's no way, Mrs. No, there's no way I'm taking you up there to the Royal. That's my best Belfast accent.
No way, Jose.
I said, you will take me. And I can remember distinctly tapping his desk. You will take me up to the hospital. I need to get on duty before 1 o'clock. Well, eventually he said, okay, I'll take you and I'll drop you off in the city centre. I said, no, you won't. You'll take me right up to the hospital. I'm not walking up the Grosvenor Road. You'll take me straight into the hospital. So he did renege.
I think he was the one that was more scared.
So that was that. And have you got something else to say there? Oh, no, I know. There was another time I was meant to say, see, Zoe, the glasses. I was meant to tell you a story about another day when there was a strike on again. These happened, it seems, in my memory. And I had to walk the 5 miles to the hospital before, again, after a day off, before my on at 1. So I walked all the way to the hospital. I had no idea how long it would take me. So, of course, I was late. And I arrived on the ward half an hour late, quickly got into my work, and I heard this gulder. It's what they call it in Belfast. I don't know what else to say. It was a gulder down the ward. Nurse Saunders! Maiden name. Why are you late? And I had no heart to tell her, you know, you should have slept in the hospital last night. There was a state of emergency called in the province. You should have got in here. I did not dare to tell her that I didn't actually have a bed in the hospital because that was my 3rd year and I was allowed to live out at home again. So she was one of the sisters that we all just kind of.
You didn't argue with?
No. May argue with the UDA guy, but I didn't argue with that sister. She was a great sister, actually. No names mentioned.
Communication was much more difficult then. There were no mobile phones in those days. Outside a red phone box was where I'd be found, waiting patiently while someone chatted away. My excitement increased as I made that call. At Mussen House, someone answered the phone. Then I heard that same voice shouting her name, and I soon was listening to her dulcet tone.
Excuse me, my dulcet tone? You're the one that has dulcet tones.
Love was the bridge over troubled waters. Pam saw sights she should never have seen, limbs blown off and intestines spilled out, enough to turn the bravest nurse green. One grand national day when pubs were packed full, huge explosions left many wounded or dead. What horrific sights for a young student nurse of shattered bodies on those hospital beds.
I remember the day when there was a bomb. It was actually the day of the Grand National, and there was a bomb in one of the pubs, which was absolutely packed, obviously, with people watching the race.
Mhm.
And my friend Marie and I were on the same shift, so we both had a split shift, and we both worked in A&E at that time. And so we came back on from our split at 5 o'clock, and it was absolute bedlam. And we were sent quickly into resource, go to the first trolley. We went to the first trolley, and that was horrendous. The injuries this guy had were horrendous. So Marie was told to go to the top end, to the head, and I was told to go to the abdomen area. And what I discovered and saw there, still, I can remember it so clearly. This guy must have taken the full blast of the explosion in his side, and his whole intestines were just spilt out.
Horrible.
Absolutely horrible. So it was like a surgeon working there trying to put them in as gently as he could. But I was looking at Marie, and she was going whiter and whiter. I thought, oh, Marie, keep standing, keep standing. Anyway, eventually they decided they had to take this guy up to theatre. So off he went to theatre. So Marie and I went to another trolley with a guy on it, and we went over wondering why nobody else was with him, only to discover we actually knew this guy. It was one of our porters, and it was too late to be of any help to him. So these just experiences that we had. We then wheeled the trolley round to the temporary mortuary in A&E. You just have to set up these things on days like this with the casualties coming in quickly. So we wheeled him round to the utilities room, which was a temporary mortuary, and there were bodies already in there on trolleys. And we left and came out to see where else we needed to go to help. And as we came out into the main area outside the office, we heard a red buzzer going, and we looked at the panel, and it said in utilities. Whoa, there were only dead bodies in utilities, so
dear.
that was a wee bit spooky.
Oh dear.
Is that all that I have to say there? Or
I
do I
think-
need to put my glasses on, Zoe? Do I need them? Please, can I put my glasses on for this wee bit, Zoe, just in case?
You had to.
Oh, yes, in the wards.
Yeah.
Sorry, Aaron, you're going to prompt me. In the wards as well, lots of the victims were in the wards, and obviously being nursed to recovery. And the Royal was actually the only hospital that took gunshot wounds at the time. And so we really were busy. And anytime there was a terrorist who was brought in, there were other people, obviously civilians with wounds from explosions and gunshot wounds. But every time there was a terrorist in, they had to be police guarded. So, of course, there were many romances that blossomed between the policemen on guard. And because we only had policemen then, actually, I never remember a policewoman being on guard. Policemen were on guard between the policemen and the nurses, but not me. I'd already got my man.
Hey.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy with the one I've got. So there were romances. Actually, one of my friends ended up marrying a patient that she met because of the troubles. So there you go. Another wee romantic story for you. Oh yeah, I was warned one day that there was by the police, I think, that there's one of these male patients was watching me and watching every move. And don't worry, it wasn't because he fancied me. He was up to something. Don't know what it was. But I then was moved over to the other side, to the female side of the ward, to get away from him. So that was the kind of thing that went on.
Yeah. They were troubled times.
So are you going to, I'll try not to interrupt you this time. You want to read through the whole poem
Okay.
right to the end? Okay.
A bridge over troubled waters. Our courting began as the troubles grew worse, when crossing Belfast at night wasn't wise. But true love will always find a way through. The risk was worth it just to look in her eyes. Those troubled days in Belfast were tough. One Friday afternoon in July 72, 22 IRA bombs exploded, causing deaths and many injuries too. Bloody Friday is still a memory with me, as I worked very close to one blast, and I realized how fragile life was. I'd be gone if I'd been walking past. Pamela's training meant living in hospital rooms, Mussen House in RVH's grounds, Belfast, and leaving her there at the end of the day meant a quick drop off before getting home fast. An army post near those residence halls drew fire from IRA guns on many nights, so for safety, Pamela had to sleep on the floor as tracer bullets whizzed by. What a fright. During a workers' strike, when roads were blocked, Pamela went to the headquarters of the UDA and boldly requested a lift to her work, which was granted with little delay. Communication was much more difficult then. There were no mobile phones in those days. Outside a red phone box at the top of the street was where I'd be found, waiting patiently while someone chatted away. My excitement increased as I made that call. At Mussen House, someone answered the phone. Then I heard that same voice shouting her name, and I was soon listening to her dulcet tone. Love was a bridge over troubled waters. Pam saw sights she should never have seen, limbs blown off and intestines spilled out, enough to make the bravest nurse green, or turn the bravest nurse green. One grand national day, when pubs were packed full, huge explosions left many wounded or dead. What horrific sights for a young student nurse, of shattered bodies on those hospital beds. The troubles brought us closer together, though for many it tore them apart, a real test of whether relationships were on the surface or deep in the heart. While love was blossoming, something was wrong, but first love made us sweep it aside. It had to be faced and then sorted before our future we could decide.
But that's another story. That didn't work right. I wanted to do the EastEnders.